I need you to understand one thing before we get into the meat of this video. The intention of this trip was simply to find a good gold deposit for a future video and meet a subscriber on the creek. But what ended up happening was I found the biggest single nugget that I'd ever found. But our story first starts with me finding a unique gold deposit I have not got on camera before. It always seems to be the case that when I don't have my tripod and I'm not intending on filming, I end up finding a deposit that is so exceptional that I have to film. This log jam here has created an undercut bank. You can see here that the bank has sheared away. The water would have come at high velocity underneath these logs, undermined all the soil, and the tops dropped down into the water. I was picking up trace gold through this section here, and that trace gold was really good. That's a little bit of it just there. It is coarse, chunky stuff. In situations like this, normally the river or creek will reconcentrate the gravels on the edge of the collapse, and that's where you'll get a hyper concentration of gold. The original collapse edge was right here. I went in underneath it and started pulling out material that looks just like this. Now, I have no tripod, so the camera angles here are going to be a bit dodgy. As I got deeper under that bank, the gold got better. A deposit that perhaps has been sitting there since the old timers walked off this gold field over 150 years ago. You see, I was digging in an old hydraulic mine where they used water cannons to remove soil and rock and process the gold. These water cannons were good at moving dirt, but not so good at cleaning rocks. One of the wild things about this spot is that there's hardly any black sand. It's a little bit of ironstone and that's it. In fact, it's that lack of black sand that makes me think this is reconcentrated tailings. The slurry produced by the water cannons was forced through a series of sluice boxes, but the rocks were never washed properly by those water cannons, meaning if you had a lot of clay in the soil, it could bind gold and black sand to it. And their sluice boxes were actually pretty efficient at catching all the stuff that was liberated, such as the black sands. So today we've only left with a little bit of ironstone and some decent gold. That's actually a bad pan. Chris's rock removal service. And with 150 years of erosion, the creek has finally washed those rocks clean, and the little bit of gold and black sand that was left over is falling into the creek. And that's just it. Because the clay bound everything up, there's a lot of gold stuck on those rocks. Oh, look at that. It looks just like tailings. It's loose. It's got that sticky consistency you get when you've run a sluice box for a while. Oh, and it's got that uniform grey crunchy size gravel in it. This is tailings for sure. Normally once you turn a camera on, the gold up and evaporates. Hopefully I get to show you what I'm talking about because there is some phenomenal gold here. There we go. That is what I've been getting under the bank really consistently. The high velocity water coming in from underneath that log had washed the rocks clean and liberated all these goodies. It's good sized gold. It's really chunky for my region. I actually filmed a full video on this creek that's going to be released in the next couple of weeks where I got some phenomenal gold, including a little nugget. Oh, if only this Chris knew what the other Chris didn't, because I was only an hour off finding the biggest nugget I've ever panned. So if you want to see that and other prospecting videos like this, consider hitting the subscribe button. There is every chance that this deposit goes in under that drop all the way back to where the new bank is currently. But that means moving a lot of soil right up to where the new bank is. And I'm not up for that today. We're just going to poke around with a shovel and see what I get. We're actually not too far away from the hard rock mine, so I like looking at these rocks just in case, because you never know. As usual, I'm on a time crunch, so I want to get as many pans done as I can before my time's up. You never know who's going to find the spot next. Careful observation had led me to believe that the tailings I was digging in were actually directly at the end of a ground sluice box they would have been using in their hydraulic mining operations. And this would explain why there was an unusually high concentration of gold in this spot and not so much upstream or downstream of this point. In fact, the only other place that I'd found a concentration of gold like this was directly below the hard rock mine that sits next to the creek. And given that I was only a couple hundred meters away from that hard rock mine, would explain what I found in the near future. There isn't a day that goes by on my channel where I don't get the statement, you should go upstream further where the source is because the gold will be bigger. The problem with that statement is it's not strictly true. Most of the spots that we work today as gold prospectors have already been heavily mined by the old timers. And whilst we have things like metal detectors and more modernized sluice boxes, we're still essentially using the same techniques they were. And that means that the gold that you're finding in creeks like this one today is often not coming from upstream, but in fact the banks that ring the sides of the creek. These banks hold a lot of gold, although it is loosely concentrated. It's pretty amazing that every pan I'm doing is giving me chunky bits, particularly for the northeast of Victoria where fine gold is the most common type of gold you're going to get. That is really good. Those bits are going to add up fast, and with the gold price being $160 a gram at the moment, I'm going to be drinking whiskeys tonight. Yeah. The way that you need to think of this is the same as your sluice box. The gold that comes into the creek that you're going to be able to find today is just made from low-grade gravels sitting on the edge. And we would never work low-grade gravels. That's why we rely on the water from the creek itself to reconcentrate it into something more valuable. I love these types of gold deposits. They're amongst some of the richest that I work in the northeast of Victoria. Every single pan is good. Except for that one dodgy one that when I turn the camera on, what is that? It's like the gold can hear you. Because most of the time, we're just getting gold like this. That's nice. I like this. Thank you, old timers, for not washing your rocks properly. Because you just gave me the biggest flake of the day. That's probably, like today's gold prices, that's probably $5 right there. Could you imagine the old timers finding out that we get for an ounce what they used to get in like an entire season? Yep, still got gold. I put my head down and my butt up, mostly to save my back, but also to process as much dirt as possible. My subscriber arrived, and then it happened. Look, I've been here for a couple of hours. I've been working away, being a really consistent gold as you've seen, and something just happened that never happens, and I've got a witness. You saw that?
Absolutely amazing.
This never happens to me, ever. Oh, look at this. Working this edge. Consistent pans of 30 to 50. I was just looking at this rock that I'd thrown out of my tailings. I was like, oh, that's a really nice rock. This is what we look for when it comes to specimen gold, right? Because you've got all the vugs, all the right stuff. Anyway, I was looking at that, and then I looked up into my pan, and this popped out. Holy shit, that is the biggest specimen I've ever pulled. I got that panning. What the actual feel the weight of it. There is a lot of gold in that.
That's incredible.
Oh, that's unbelievable. It's more unbelievable that I've actually got a witness to this. Normally you're on your own when this stuff happens. Feel that.
Oh yeah, it's...
How much do you reckon?
Oh, it's got to be 4 or 5 grams easy in that.
Easy. Like, we're not that far from the hard rock mines. We're about 500 meters from the hard rock mines, and there's a lot of them up here, so... Jesus Christ, man. Well, thank you, my good luck charm.
No
For those wondering, we did bring down the GPX 6000 and detected all of the tailings. And what we found was... oh, rubbish.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bit more rubbish.
Just heaps of rubbish. No fist-sized specimens for us. I did, however, pick up a bunch of rocks that we're going to crush up because I reckon we might find a lot of fine gold mixed in this stuff. There's just a hunch going on with the, not so extreme geology that's going on there. And we also have an entire bucket of cons to go through, which has what I'm going to argue is a lot of fine alluvial gold in it. See, every day I don't bring my tripod. Amazing stuff happens. We're going to go home, process this, weigh up the specimen, it's turned into a prospecting extravaganza. Since filming that video, so much has happened. I've opened my shop, I completely worked out that spot, and Gadsy found out that he has French in him. At any rate, that's the gold I managed to recover from the fallen bank. For my area, that is a ridiculously good take of chunky gold. It normally doesn't come out of the creek quite like that. I've even got several small specimens that indicate that more gold ore is probably traveling downstream from the hard rock mines. But honestly, nothing could have prepared me for finding that massive specimen. It is literally the biggest gold nugget I have ever found. I know that there is bigger gold nuggets in the world. I know people find pieces like this every single day in places like Western Australia. But here in the northeast of Victoria, this is an exceptionally rare piece to have uncovered. Before I throw this bad boy on the scales, I wanted to say a massive thank you to all my patrons who have been giving me support for many years now. Making videos like this is a lot easier with your help. And if you want to help support the channel directly, check out my shop online, theoldmoldy.com.au. That's where you can pick up some merch. We're getting hats soon, as well as pay dirt so you can practice panning for gold in your underwear at home. First, let's get the fine alluvial gold on the scales. There is a lot of chunky pieces in there, so I'm going to guess that there's 1.2 grams. Or maybe a little less. G-bang on the dot. That's not too bad considering it came out of old-timer tailings. And now for the big boy. I think there's more than 5 grams of gold in that. It is a really solid chunk. The weight in my hands feels really good. So I'm going to guess 5 grams. Leave your guess below. You ready? Oh, 6.22. A 6.2 gram specimen. This is far more valuable left as is with the quartz on it because it shows the geology it originated from. And at 6.2 grams, that is roughly $1,000 piece of gold. Couple that with the fine alluvial gold, and you're talking about almost 1,200 Australian dollars for a single day's panning. With the gold price being so high and finding such a rich deposit, that is by far the best day I've had panning ever. $1,200 in like 4 hours.